Hey guys, welcome back to YuGiOh, the Eternal Duelist Soul. Let's see what we've gotten from our monthly YuGiOh. Nothing really useful, honestly. I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that might be pissed about me using cheat codes and stuff, but honestly, you wanted me to get by with these kinds of cards and make, Anyway, so we've taken on Rare Hunter and Arcana so far, so we're going to take on Umbra and Lumis. These guys are pretty interesting, because I don't exactly even remember their voices from like the original English dub, nor the original Japanese version. I only remember the what is it called? The YuGiOh abridged versions of them. Primarily because they borrowed the voice from the guys from, I think it's Aqua Team Hunger Force. Yeah. So whenever I see them, I automatically think that, and that's the voice that I think in my head for them. But anyways, we have here a water deck this time with some pretty interesting little cards, as you can see here. I figured since we used the water deck twice in a row, we might as well change things up. And there's a good amount of water cards in this deck. Or rather, in this game, so I figured I'd go for that. It's a bit different from the usual water deck. It's sort of kind of a beatdown water deck, not entirely, because I have a bunch of random cards, as you can see. But I'm using Yumikita, I think it's called. Yumikita? Something like that, but it boosts all water attribute monsters by 500, and lowers their defense by 400. But yeah. The reason I say it's different is because usually people use Yumi, which only boosts your attacking defense by 200, but it has a bunch of other effects that affect a bunch of other monsters. But I don't have any of that stuff, is what I'm trying to say, basically. But anyways, we have Violent Rain. There were so many cards that I could have picked for this deck, but I just picked like Violent Rain and the other one, what's it called, like Bihigun, just because it looks so funny. It's just an angry rain cloud. I don't know. I really kind of miss the old card art. Not entirely, but I kind of do, just because they had a lot of interesting designs. But I dislike they don't really do that anymore. See, I wanted to activate Ultimate Offering, and I thought that I could just activate it, but I didn't think I would have to use it in that turn, but it doesn't matter. But yeah. So, these have a lot of interesting artwork, especially with normal monsters. Like, they never, ever print out normal monsters anymore. Ever. Which I guess is okay, because nobody really uses them. The only times you would use a normal monster if it's A, if it's Blue Eyes, or B, if it's, what is this thing called? For a normal monster deck, which is, a normal monster beatdown deck. Then, sure, you'll use it. Other than that, I don't know, I think Gem Knights have some sort of support for normal monsters, but I think that might be exclusive only to Gem Knights. So, yeah, pretty much, I don't know. Ever since, I guess, whenever GX came out, pretty much, they stopped making normal monsters. Because the only normal monsters they really made were for the E-Heroes, so they made quite a couple of those. And they made, a couple of random cards here and there, but then after that, not really. They've had maybe, I don't know, every year they release like maybe 2 normal monsters that are not part of an official set. Which is the other thing, they don't release, random cards anymore. They always release cards that support an archetype. There's not really that many random cards that they make anymore. Some of them they do, but they usually affect monsters. So basically what I'm saying, they don't make cards for fun anymore. They just make cards, that are strong and that win and whatnot. But I mean, it is a business after all, so I guess I can't blame them. Trading cards is not exactly a live or an active medium, I guess. Like basically, it's not exactly giant money making, industry as maybe it used to be 30, 40 years ago back in the day, since now everything's digital. So since the majority of these cards, for example, as you can see I'm using them, are digital, so it's rare that that something like trading cards is still going on. Primarily, I believe, just because of the series, the Yu-Gi-Oh series. That's primarily why Yu-Gi-Oh managed to hold strong. Similarly with Pokemon, because Pokemon is just a big industry, because it has a lot of other components to it. It's not just by itself. The only industry, the trading card series, I guess, that works good by itself is Magic, but that's because it has a big following behind it. And then that's it. It's just, there's nothing else. You only got Pokemon because of the Pokemon series, Yu-Gi-Oh because of the Yu-Gi-Oh series, then Magic. Everything else just has random little cards. Like I think, well, I guess Vanguard is kind of picking up, but that also has a series behind it. So, by itself, Magic is the only game that can really do that. Speaking of which, I've never ever played Magic, actually. I've wanted to. I should probably see if they have any sort of like Magic video games. Because I'm not going to get cards for Magic because I have no one to play with. Because I don't know. Well, alright, I do know a couple of people, but nobody that I'm really that close to or that I can see that easily plays Magic. So, I don't know. I'm better off either trying to see if they have some sort of online game, which they should, but I've never heard of it. But at the same time, I'm out of the whole Magic the Gathering circle for the obvious reasons that I've never played. But, I mean, I can't say there's anything. Well, it's like the same duel back again, because before he summoned Gemini Elf, or they summoned Gemini Elf, however you want to see it, and then I had Toon Alligator in defense mode. But I really only have that card just because it just looks funny. But anyways, yeah. What was I saying? I don't remember what I was saying. I know what I was going to get into. Basically, I was going to say that I'm not entirely like I was never really interested in Magic because it's more like fantasy, like American fantasy, which has I don't know how to describe it. Like, I'm more of a... The best way I can describe it is, like, I'm more of a JRPG kind of guy, but I'm not exactly a Skyrim kind of guy, if that makes sense, when it comes to role-playing and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I guess I can give it a shot. I see the appeal. I totally see the appeal. But I've never personally been that into it. The only thing I can think of that I was really into that falls into the that kind of category as I believe it's a Western RPG would probably be I don't think I've ever played an actual like Western RPG. I mean, the closest to that I've played is like Kingdom Hearts, just because of the gameplay is a little similar, but that doesn't really count at all. That's more of an action game. But no, I've never really played a Western RPG. Which is probably why I mean, it doesn't really have a big part to do with why I'm not into Magic, but it's just the style didn't originally appeal to me, and my other friends didn't really care about it, so I had no reason to get into it, just myself. So, we already had YuGiOh, so that was pretty much the thing. As you can tell, I'm not really caring too much about the duel, because this is possibly the worst duel I've ever done in my entire life, just for how long and how obnoxious it is. But I just have to grit my teeth, stick through it. He has like a wall of monsters, all of which are probably Wall of Illusion, or Penguin Soldier, or some sort of annoying monster. So I'm just gonna go ahead and rant on and just pretend that what's on, the game isn't really happening. Anyways, so yeah, I've never fairly given Magic the Gathering a chance, but I've also never really had the chance to, play with it per se. Like, the only time I had a chance was, I think it was Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, and I believe it was the first time I went. I mean, back when it was like the anime festival, I think that was the first time that I went. I believe so, because that's when they used to still give out cool stuff. Because once it became Comic-Con, it became really shitty. But I remember, like, as soon as I walked in, some guy gave me a fucking some like starter deck or something for Magic. I don't know where it is. I think my friend took it, which is really lame, because I really wanted to use it, and I have no idea what it is. But that's the only time I ever had, any experience with Magic cards. So yeah. Unfortunately, I I don't know what happened to that deck of cards. Probably would have gotten into it at the time, since I had just recently gotten out of high school and I wasn't in college yet, so I had a lot of free time on my hands. But I wasn't exactly working, so I could have easily gotten into Magic. But since I don't know what happened to this card, I did it. But that doesn't matter. But yeah, maybe someday. Probably not, because I don't know. I find it increasingly hard to get into, or to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh. Not so much. I don't know. It's difficult. No, okay. It's difficult to keep up with Yu-Gi-Oh. That's what it is. Getting back into it is no problem. Like, I spent, I don't know, most of my winter break in like January. I spent it playing the World Championship games. Well, actually, no, they weren't World Championship games anymore. The Yu-Gi-Oh games on the DS, the original DS. But I was playing, I forgot what they were called, because after 5Ds they had certain names. Because up until, I think, 2008, from like 2004 maybe to 2008, I think they were all called World Championship. Maybe even prior to that, I'm not entirely sure. But after 2008, they started calling them something else. But basically, I was playing a bunch of those. And it was, you know, I didn't even have a lot of trouble getting back into the game. I was having a good amount of fun. The only reason I stopped is because I started feeling kind of lonely. Because, I mean, primarily, when I play Yu-Gi-Oh, I think of, you know, my friends. That's the main driving force behind Yu-Gi-Oh for me is, you know, my friends. It's, one, the whole customizable aspect and putting, like, I guess, sort of my personality into a touchable medium, and also interacting with other people. So, with that gone, the only part I have is the, you know, personality aspect or whatever. That's kind of difficult to do nowadays and still win at the same time. And also, there's a lot of cards that I have to go through. Because I like being really, I guess, efficient when I'm building a deck. Like, I like looking through every single one of my cards. And it's increasingly more difficult unless I have I don't know, I'm on some sort of like Dev Pro or something like that where I can filter my results. If it's in person, it's kind of annoying. I've somewhat gotten a little more used to it now. Like before, I used to do it like on a daily basis. But I don't know. But yeah, while I was playing the games, I started getting really lonely because usually what I do when I play those games is after, you know, I beat the computer a bunch of times, whatever. I don't really care for them. I don't really care for the computers because usually they have like, sometimes they have kind of, sometimes they have interesting decks, but the more stronger decks are a bit more cookie cutter. Like they have too many staples and too many splashable cards and something really too great about them, or just have really strong archetypes. So there's not really a lot of thought put into it. That's why I like playing one of the like the lesser known duelists or the lesser stronger duelists that they have in the game, because they have pretty interesting decks. But that's not the point. After I'm done doing that, I usually make decks that sort of represent my friends or the people I face, or, you know, stuff like that. So I just make a variety of different decks. And, you know, I did that a bunch of times, and the game itself has I don't know how to call it, but when you save a deck, it's called a deck recipe, and then there's a mode that lets you face recipes. So basically, you just face the decks that you made. So I would just do that, and, you know, it was nice to, you know, reminisce, and I guess semi-pretend like I'm playing against my friends, but not really at all in any sense. So that's usually what I would do. Usually that used to be enough. Back in the day. Now it's kind of, because at least before that was kind of how do I say it? So like at least way back when, I knew that I would still be able to do that, you know, go and play my friends, all this and that. So when I would do that on my downtime, when, like, you know, my friends weren't around, it was okay, because I was like, yeah, you know, whatever, maybe later on we'll play them, and it'll be fine. But now it's kind of like, well, I'll probably never play them at this rate, so this sucks. So, I don't know, that's probably why it's really lonely. I mean, I don't know. I don't really feel like I'm a little too old to be trying to make new friends to be playing cards with, especially since I don't... Like, the main issue is that I don't keep up with the game, because there's, it's too much of a business now. It's not so much fun anymore. That's what's really difficult about keeping up with it. The only way I can keep up with it is if I buy a bunch of new cards. because that's pretty much how it is. That's pretty much how the game works. If you have a bunch of old cards, too bad, they're outdated, they're going to be really weak, you're going to get trashed, you're not going to have a good time. Because at the end of the day, you can say winning's not everything and all that, but if you're just losing and getting obliterated in like 2 turns, because the game is incredibly fast, like nowadays duels end in like 4 to 5 turns, if that's what's happening to you, you're obviously not going to have a good time. So that's the main issue. That's why I've been ruminating on this idea of making a sort of system that it's similar to how in Pokemon, or competitive battling for Pokemon to be more specific, they have set tiers so that, things of a certain power level fight with things of a, so that basically it just limits the power. So you won't have, Pikachu going up against a Mewtwo, because they're in different tiers. So it balances things out. So I was ruminating on a way to do that for YuGiOh. But the issue with that is that you can't do that, for example, on a card-to-card basis. Because it won't work like that. Because it's more about just the cards themselves, but it's also the combination of cards. For example, like if you use like a point system for each card, I could just add up a bunch of strong cards that primarily probably won't work well together, but if I had a well-constructed deck, that point system would not work. I'm trying to explain it, but it's kind of difficult to come across. Like basically, in Pokemon, you limit the Pokemon in the sense of what they can do, because it's a single aspect. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not a single aspect. It's a combination of many aspects. Every single card working together to make, however strong the deck would be. So you have to factor more into that. So I was trying to think of some sort of formulaic point system that would take into account not only the card, but also the cards that are in the deck as well. So, for example, like let's say you have Mirror Force and you have also 2 other cards that work well with Mirror Force. I can't think of a good example right now. It would factor that in as opposed to a deck that only has Mirror Force and some other random cards that don't work together. So the deck with the cards that work together will have a higher point value, as opposed to the deck that has just random cards. Basically will have a lower point value, is what I'm trying to get at. It's really difficult because it's a really difficult concept to formulate with this kind of game, because there's too many variables. There's, I think, an endless amount of variables, honestly, just because anybody can make any kind of deck. They won't make any kind of deck. Like, they won't take a bunch of random cards and use them, because it probably won't work. But the odds of, controlling what kind of deck people have is pretty difficult. So, yeah, that's probably why the metagame itself is so generic, just because it's a lot easier to know what's going on. Which is, at the same time, makes things sail, but at the same time controllable. So it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, more or less. But I guess I can finally talk about the duel now. Things are somewhat winding down. He's managed to summon Shadow Ghoul really late in the duel, which means it has a really high attack. But luckily, I have my Penguin Soldier, so I'm going to go ahead and return that to his hand. It's a level 5 monster, so he has to tribute it, which would be an issue, since he has a monster on the field. As you can see, he tributes it right away. But he can also have a, as we've seen many times, a great, he has Trap Hole. He could easily have a Millennium Shield. So we're kind of fucked, basically. If that's Shadow Ghoul, we're fucked. Even if it's not Shadow Ghoul, we're fucked. Because he has Shadow Ghoul in his hand, he can simply sacrifice his monster to summon Shadow Ghoul. But instead, he's just going to play it defensively. Because the computer is just stupid. Could have easily won the duel right then and there. I guess he got scared of my face down card, but it doesn't matter. It would have been great if maybe... Okay, Cyberjar. Well, that's interesting. Cyberjar is a really interesting card because it changes the game immediately. No matter what is going on at the game, it drastically alters what's going on. But I'm trying to see if I can win it in this turn. See if I can summon as many monsters as possible. It shouldn't be that hard since I've drawn a lot of magic and trap cards, so I should have a lot of monsters left in my deck. And I have YuGiOh on the field, and Starboard, so all my monsters get an extra 1,000 attack. And he's only, he managed to draw Penguin Soldier, and another monster, and another monster. So unfortunately, I have to really think this out, because once I attack Penguin Soldier, I'm going to lose 2 monsters. I do have Ultimate Offering. I guess I can use Aqua Chorus. I don't think it's really going to make too much of a difference. Luckily, later on, they fixed it so that when you place cards like this, like when you set a bunch of cards, they'll randomize the order, so you can't, for example, I'll just immediately attack, the cards that I want to get killed. Right, so I guess I can use Toon Alligator to attack his Voice Raider. And then finally, I can use my giant Sea Snake. I was going to say Sea Serpent. That's what type of monster it is. It's going to return Aqua Matador, which is perfectly fine. Because I have Ultimate Offering, but it won't make a difference. Because unfortunately, he still has 3,600 life points, so I could have had that in the match. You'd think when I summoned fucking 5 monsters in one turn, I would win, but actually no. And I've drawn another Starboy. So there we go. Now all my monsters have an extra 1,500 attack. Starboy usually has, I think, 1,000 attack. No, he has 500 attack. And now he has 2,550. I think that's all the cards in the deck. Yeah, that's all the cards in both our decks. But since he couldn't draw 5 cards, he automatically loses. So that's why I said as soon as it started that this duel was going to be a nightmare, as you've seen. So I hope you enjoyed my rants, rather than me ruminating on such an obnoxious duel. But we're just going to go ahead and pick up the pack for today, and that's going to end it for today. Hope you guys had a good time, and I'll see you soon.